Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
2 certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only 2 best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go. Should we dedicate this episode to my new nephew?
Yes.
I feel bad my new niece didn't get one.
Oh, that's true. This is your first nephew.
We can dedicate it to both of them.
Sure.
This one goes out to...
You've had 3. This is your 3rd niece, though. And this is the first nephew.
That doesn't make her any less of a person or special.
No, she's no less of a person.
Jesus. You're trying to, sideline her.
Well, you haven't been able... You're not going to be able to see this little nephew for a little while because he lives in a different country.
He lives in Europe. Well, no, this one goes out to Kieran, born December 5th. And Wyatt, born earlier this week on January 6th. I doubled my nieces and nephews in 1 month.
Yeah, you're doing good work.
I'm doing no work. It's great. They are cute.
I should not become an aunt anytime soon with an 18-year-old brother.
Let's really, really hope not. Just FYI, my family calls us... My family calls us Aunt Crachel, just so you know that.
I did not know that until now.
Did you not read the thank you note that I got? It was addressed to Aunt Crachel from my brother and his wife.
Wow. Yeah, it's a new...
So,
I don't know if it's a new high or a new low.
It's a new low. It's all right. I'll take it. Okay, so...
We do have an announcement, which is not new to some of you.
That's not a baby-related announcement?
No more baby-related announcements. For a little while, we don't know anyone expecting. We do have another announcement, though, that if you've been listening to the podcast will not surprise you.
Mm-hmm.
But on Tuesday, we are running our Passion Plan Virtual Experience, the PPVE, one more time.
Well, we're opening enrollment, and then we're going to run it one more time.
Yeah. So Tuesday is the first day you can enroll. And this is your last chance. So if you've been trying to figure out what do you want to do with your life, with your career, if you want some direction in 2020 in this new decade, that is what we're here to do.
If you want us to take you through our one-on-one coaching process, but you don't either want or can't do one-on-one coaching, this is a really good alternative because it's significantly cheaper. I mean, significantly cheaper.
Yes,
and
many times less.
We did not raise the rates, which we thought about doing, but it's the last time, so we're not. And there are going to be a couple changes from any other time we've run it. We'll talk about that more on Tuesday when it's open and live. But the content remains the same. And there's going to be a forum. There's always a forum where we answer questions every day, multiple times a day. We're in there reading and responding to people. And people are, responding to each other. And it's a very cool group of people always. Even though it's always different people, it's a very cool, smart...
We always get great people every time.
Smart, intellectually astute, but also very emotionally intelligent people.
Very self-aware people, very expressive people. We
draw a good crowd, I gotta say.
We collect the best people.
I mean,
so if
gotta catch them all.
If you want to meet some of our cool people... It's not just you talking to us on the forum, it's also you talking to each other.
Yeah.
And feeling validated that you're not the only one struggling with some of these big questions.
Mm-hmm. So it happens over the course of 6 weeks. We usually take a little bit of a break week in between so that you can catch up on content.
There's a lot of content. You'll appreciate that.
But content's mostly released on a weekly basis or a kind of actually twice a week basis so that you're never overly inundated. And you can follow along at that pace. Or you can, if you enroll in this course, you have access to it forever. Even though we're not going to be running this course again, you're still going to have access to the content forever.
Yep.
So if you fall behind, that's not a big deal. You'll always have access to it. The other thing I will say is that we are going to be capping enrollment because we just can't have more than about 50 people in there. It starts to get overwhelming. It starts to get noisy to the point where Kristen and I can't give you proper attention. And that's never our goal. We want to make sure that if you're there, you're getting like thoughtful responses. And
so this is literally the last 50 people who get to take this course.
Ever. Which sounds really dramatic, but it's just a fact.
But it's just true.
It's just a fact.
So,
and just letting you know, if you are the person who thinks I would like to do one-on-one coaching maybe after this, that's fine. Usually if someone decides to do coaching after the PPVE, they don't need nearly as much one-on-one coaching. And of course, you get like special PPVE members only rates on one-on-one coaching. So it is something that a lot of people do kind of first. And then they decide to move on. Not a lot, but like a fraction of people do it that way.
Yeah. So it's not an either or necessarily. In fact, this might speed up your coaching progress because you've done so much of the preliminary work going in.
Yeah. So 5.5 years later, and we're finally done with it.
I cannot believe we ran the PPVE for 5.5 years.
And we talked about this like 6 months ago when we first announced that we were going to be making this change. But I will just say quickly that it's not like we're not doing it because it doesn't work anymore or because it's not still great content. It's just after 5.5 years, you kind of want to do something different and you want to move on and you want to make space for new things. And so that's...
And we have been doing new things. We did a brand new course last summer.
Yeah.
And we want to be able to put some energy into those new experiences while still giving you this process in the one-on-one coaching format from here on out.
Yeah. I mean, this content will always be available. It's just going to be,
for clients.
Yeah. But there will be other things. We're going to update the short course. We'll maybe have new stuff that we haven't even thought of coming out.
Who knows?
So, yeah.
This will open up some space. We'll see what happens.
That's kind of how I like life.
Yeah.
All right. So, I'm very...
do you want to tell us how you came up with this topic today?
No.
No? I didn't
You forgot where this came from.
I did, but I just wanted to know.
Oh, God, don't...
why you're bringing it up and why now? But whatever answer you want to give.
All right, I will. I'll say it. Okay. You guys know, this is going to seem like such a non sequitur. It's not. You guys know, if you've ever listened to like some of the episodes, the more lighthearted episodes, or that one on my birthday we put out like a year and a half ago, August 2018. Go back and find it has butterbeer in the title. You can't miss it. That I love Star Wars. And my brother and I, watched it all the time when we were growing up. And I just have such an affinity for it and the characters because it's not really an action-y. To me, it's not an action movie. It's very much like, it's more mystical and spiritual. And it's very much based in like Joseph Campbell and like the hero's journey.
The characters are just so great and so lovable. Yeah.
Yeah. So
you always loved Star Wars, but I feel like something went up many notches.
I loved the sequel trilogy.
Yeah,
and you want to know why?
Trilogy.
You want to know why? Because it was told from the female gaze.
Yeah, which was really cool.
Never been done in a Star Wars movie before. So the first movie was really good. The second movie was near perfection. I will not be taking criticism or argument about that at this time.
Please refrain.
Please refrain. It was so good. You could analyze that movie to death with all of its symbolism.
And you have.
About like, feminine and masculine. It was so, so good. The last one is absolute shit. It is terrible. It absolutely... And this is where this came from, is because I'm not going to get into it because you don't need to have watched the movie to understand. They took what was a female journey and they completely ripped that away from her and they gave her no agency. They took away like all of her autonomy. They literally didn't allow her to express like feelings really in this movie. At the end, when she should have been like the most grief-stricken she's ever been, she was just like a blank.
Happy.
Yeah, pretending to be happy. It was horrific to watch in that, like, if you're a woman and you're watching it, you know exactly how it feels. And it's very clear to me that the people who wrote it, men, not saying all men are like this, but the people who wrote it had literally no idea what they were doing. They bungled the story so badly because, if you're writing for a woman, you maybe need a woman to be writing with you. I'm just going to say that.
At least that input.
So it really got me thinking about what happens when your feelings as a person are invalidated, or they're consistently ignored, or they're scorned, or they're diminished, or they're derided, or you're being actively gaslit. Because it's an experience that a lot of people, and I'm not just going to say women. Yes, I think women are more often the victims of this, but I think that the cultural sort of toxicity around not being able to feel feelings affects women and men equally. And I think men often end up perpetuating this.
Well, I think men have this experience a lot too, because they're not allowed. They are very often asked to not feel how they feel or pretend they don't feel how they feel, or they only have certain avenues like anger to express it, and other ones are not okay. So I think this affects everyone. It might just look different.
Well, and I think the problem is that when you, as a culture, shame men from having feelings and you make it unsafe for them to be vulnerable and they think that's weak, then they will often end up perpetuating that stereotype among men. But they'll also, because they're afraid of feelings and they've never been encouraged to have them, they will often then turn it around and like make it hard for women to have feelings. Like they will scorn or reject or ignore.
Well, and then women buy into that society.
And then we buy into it. And then we do it to each other.
And to men.
Yes.
And we don't like them to have certain feelings because it makes us uncomfortable. We all are doing it to each other.
So it's really no one's fault is what I'm saying. I don't think this is a gendered issue. I think this is an issue that can end up expressing itself in the genders slightly differently. But at the end of the day, we're all equally victim to it. And equally sometimes perpetrators of it.
And I think it's especially important for you and I to talk about this because we spend so much time encouraging people to feel their feelings. We've had many episodes about the importance of expressing your feelings, feeling your feelings, sharing those feelings, and not ignoring them and stuffing them away like so many of us do. And we can't then ignore this huge piece of it that if you start feeling your feelings and expressing emotions, you are going to run up against people who are absolutely going to invalidate you. And what do you do then?
Yeah, not everyone is trustworthy or safe. You know, a person who can handle your feelings, not everyone is going to be capable of being a safe kind of container for you to pour your emotions into. And the reason I wanted to talk about this, beyond my complete and utter rage at how that series ended, I'm haunted by the movie we could have had. Like,
she's not exaggerating. I'm telling you.
It could have been spectacular, and it was just hot garbage. So, but I have a lot of clients struggle with getting to the point where they're comfortable expressing their feelings, and then when they get there, what often happens, it's really normal, is they make the mistake of thinking that they should just express their feelings with everyone. And then when someone in their life isn't capable of handling it, they keep going back and they start feeling crazy. Like, why can't they hear me? Or what's wrong with me? Am I not saying this right? Or I just really want them to see me and validate me. I don't understand. I'm like doing what I'm doing it. I'm expressing myself. Like I'm feeling how I feel. I feel empowered. And it is torturous to keep going back to a person who can't actually meet you there and can't actually see you and validate your feelings. And you should not do that because it's actually a form of self-harm.
It's also torturous to be someone who might have been shut down for a long time and to decide, I want to be more expressive. I want to be more vulnerable. I want to share how I'm feeling, and to get that kind of a negative response. And then you just want to go right back to shutting down again. So it can be like you kind of come out of your cave a little bit and someone just shuts you down and you just run right back in. So even if you don't keep going back to them for validation, you might decide that hurt too badly. I'm not doing that again. And so we want to try as best we can to prevent you from having those experiences affect you so intensely so that you don't feel like you have to shut down your emotions again.
So, okay. Here's what's going to happen if you have a history, and I mean this probably started in childhood, if you have a history of not being allowed to feel your feelings. First of all, I think you'll know it because you'll have spent a lot of time with people. Could be parents, could be, other authority figures, teachers. You'll know it because you were probably made fun of for having feelings. You were told to...
Or chastised.
Snap out of it, toughen up. Yeah, you could be chastised, could be berated. I mean,
could be ignored when you're having strong emotions, or...
Yeah, someone just literally walks away.
Puts you in a room.
Yeah, literally just sends you upstairs because they can't deal with you. Maybe gets hysterical in response to you.
Right, they could get angry back at you.
Right.
Or sad with you and make it feel very scary.
I think gaslighting is one of the worst things that happens because, you'll notice people starting to make you feel like people will try to make you feel crazy for feeling how you feel, or try to make you feel like you're the one who has problems for having feelings when you're actually just being reasonable. And maybe they're being incredibly unreasonable, but they don't want to take note of that. So they have to make you the unreasonable one in order for them to be right.
Yeah, that can be definitely psychologically destructive. Maybe even more so than the rest, but they can all do their damage.
Right. So I'm sure all of us have had an experience like that. Maybe some of us consistently, maybe some of us only occasionally, but you can't get through life without having had someone make you feel less than for having feelings, or make you feel like you're kind of weak or pathetic or even wrong for having feelings.
Even certain settings. Maybe with your friends it's okay, but in your family it's not okay.
Right.
Or maybe at work you can't ever express emotions, but when you're back home, then you can go home and cry all day if you need to process it. So absolutely, there's no way that you can be, at least in our society, and not have experienced this in some way. I do think it's probably most destructive if it happens when you're young, and especially if it's coming from a caregiver or someone important to your life when you're really little and you're trying to just figure out what's allowed and what's not allowed and what's normal and what's not normal. At least when you're an adult, you might have a little bit more discernment on that was not cool of that person to shut me down. But when you're a kid, you don't know. And so that becomes your normal. So you're going to have some pretty severe responses to having consistent people shutting you down, especially people close to you.
So any of the following is likely if you've been disallowed from having feelings. If the people in your life have made it feel like it's not okay for, in one way or another, for you to feel how you feel.
Yeah, these are the symptoms, if you will.
Sure. Rage. Really, really angry, because when someone refuses to acknowledge your feelings, they're refusing to see you as a person. And that is, well, for some people, not everyone responds to it this way, but for many, it's infuriating because it feels like I am invisible and like I don't matter.
It's also infuriating because on some deeper core level, you're allowed to feel how you feel about this, and someone's telling you you can't, and that inconsistency within you is very frustrating.
Well, it's also really hard to know that you're right in feeling how you feel, but having literally no one in your life who will take you seriously. Well, that could be depressing for some people, but it could also be infuriating for other people.
Depends on if you're more of a fight or flight person, but you're going to go in one of those two directions.
I obviously went in a fight direction. Rage is a big one.
Yeah. Or you'll just numb out. You'll just shut down your emotions. You'll try not to feel anything because whenever you do, you get a negative response.
Well, you must be wrong,
or you get talked out of it. So you try to just not feel your feelings. And usually you go up into your brain and you just try to analyze things and rationalize things and tolerate things. And you will know that about yourself, because if you try to check in with how you're feeling, you have no idea.
Yeah.
You don't even know how to place your feelings anymore. They're just all jumbled and smushed away somewhere.
Rigidity. So I think that you're kind of brittle when you haven't been allowed to feel your feelings, because a lot of that unprocessed crap just builds up and you become very tense. So you can become kind of trigger happy and not very, maybe not very adaptable, maybe not very go with the flow. And I don't just mean that as a personality trait. I just mean that as like almost, it becomes self-protective.
Yep.
I got to stay rigid in order to keep myself safe, or in order to be right, because it's almost like me against the world. When no one wants to acknowledge how I feel, then it's really just I'm on my own. And so I kind of have to be rigid in order to maintain that level of like independence and that level of kind of
safety.
Yeah, it's isolating.
Yeah. A really big one is you will hear a lot of negative self-talk in your head. Because that's what was modeled to you. So you'll start telling yourself the same things that these people are telling you. Whenever you have a strong emotion to something, you'll say, oh, it's not a big deal.
Why can't you just get over it?
Just get over it. Yeah, just,
You're being such a baby.
Or you'll condemn yourself from expressing anything because they're going to think I'm so stupid, or they're going to think that I'm so silly.
Or a better person wouldn't feel this way.
Exactly. So you will be taking on the messages that were modeled to you, and you will shut yourself down before someone else can even shut you down, because you've had too many experiences of being shut down by others.
Yeah. Downplaying your own feelings is a huge one too.
Yeah.
So minimizing, just the way other people minimize you.
Yep.
Well, it can't be that big of a deal, even if it does feel like a big deal. Well, logically, it doesn't make sense for me to feel this way, so I just shouldn't feel this way. As if your feelings give a damn about logic. But so many people care more about logic than feelings that you'll model that within yourself.
Well, and similarly, you'll feel like a weaker person because you'll think, I'm having all these feelings and emotions and reactions to things, and you'll assume everyone else is having an easier time and you're just weak for struggling so much because it seems like they're, if they're talking you out of it, they must not have these feelings. So I'm broken or I'm weaker in some way. And again, there comes the negative self-talk again.
So here's the hardest part to maybe internalize is that you might end up accidentally treating other people the way that someone treated you. You might minimize
how bullies are made.
And not just bullies. I mean, it's hard to break free from your own norms. And so if you experienced, someone scorning your feelings or deriding you or, making light of it or minimizing or gaslighting, I'm not saying you're all out there gaslighting other people, but sometimes because you don't know how to handle your feelings, because no one modeled that for you, no one allowed that with you, then you don't know how to do that for other people. And it scares you and it overwhelms you. And sometimes in the face of that fear and that overwhelm, you'll have a knee-jerk reaction. You'll shut someone else's feelings down. You'll walk away. You'll maybe make fun of them. You'll maybe not give them space to process how they feel.
Well, think about it. You're so uncomfortable with your own emotions because they were shut down that you're going to be equally, if not more, uncomfortable with someone else's emotions because now you really don't know how to handle that.
Yeah.
And so that's a normal reaction. Isn't there the phrase hurt people? I'm not saying you're hurting people, but that's the same premise applies.
We all hurt people sometimes. We can't go through life without accidentally hurting people. And this is a big way that we do that is, the degree to which you can be comfortable with someone else's feelings is the degree to which you're comfortable with your own. So if you're not that comfortable with your own, you're not that comfortable with anyone else's either. Mm-hmm. So, okay. I want to talk about how to process the pain of not having been allowed to feel your feelings because it's really, really heartbreaking. I think that what people want more than anything in life is to be seen for who they are and accepted for who they are and validated in that experience. Like all you want is when you're sitting down in front of another person and you're saying, what you just said made me feel like this. The last thing you want is for them to be like, bullshit. Or for them to say, you're making that up. Or to say, well, it can't be that bad. Or to get defensive. What you really want is for them to pause and go, wow, I understand that. Or that makes sense. Or I'm sorry, I didn't realize that I hurt you. How can I do that better next time? Like, you really want someone to hear you and to see you and to acknowledge your humanity. That's what we need.
Honestly, I could have an entire coaching session with someone who was having some of the symptoms and side effects of feeling shut down and feeling not allowed to feel their feelings, where all I did was remind them what you're feeling is normal.
Yes.
This makes perfect sense. Yeah. Given all of your experiences up until now, of course you're going to respond this way. Of course you're going to have this emotional reaction in this moment. And that alone would be... even if I didn't use any other coaching skills at all, that alone would be incredibly healing. And you can do that for yourself. That's actually where you have to start, is by saying, whatever I'm feeling in this moment is how I'm supposed to be feeling. And it's acceptable and it's allowed, and not everyone will get it. But I have to first give myself that permission. And that's the most important part of the whole healing experience, is giving yourself space to feel how you feel and not judging yourself for having emotional responses. You're a human.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a wrong emotion.
No.
And I think people think there is, but you're not an alien. Like, you haven't been wired incorrectly. If you're having a feeling, it's for a reason. Feelings actually flow from a completely sensical place. You might not always be able to track where they're coming from. So your brain might not always be able to make sense of them, but if you're having a feeling, it's not for no reason. There's always a logical conclusion about why you're feeling how you're feeling. And the size of your emotions also makes sense too. If you consider maybe you've got a lot of unhealed baggage or trauma. And in our episode with Thais Sky a couple months ago, I can add this to the show notes. I haven't done that yet, but I can. So go look if you want to listen to this. It's a great episode. We talked a lot about feeling your feelings and reparenting yourself. And one of the things she said is, the more old kind of, blocked, unhealed wounds and trauma you have, the more sensitive you are, the more like the slightest little thing brushes up against you, you're going to kind of jump. And so if you're having a big outsized emotional reaction to something, and you don't know why, it's not because you're wrong or crazy or you make no sense. It's, well, there's probably a historical reason that if you went back far enough would make perfect sense. So that's something I really want you guys to internalize, is that whatever emotional, response you're having, whatever feelings you're having are actually completely understandable and normal given where they came from. And you don't have to know in this moment exactly where they came from in order to trust that they're fine. And it's fine for you to be having it. It doesn't matter if you really feel like so enraged that you want to punch someone in the face. Like, don't punch someone in the face. But having a really big reaction or having a feeling that you think is, no, it can't be okay to be having this feeling. It is. It is, because it makes sense based on where it comes from.
I know whenever you say this to a group of people, there's always going to be some people saying, but no, there are some reactions that are just not okay, or that are just too much, or that are over the top or whatever. And the truth is that if you trace it back, you will always be able to understand all of the circumstances that led to you having this particular reaction. It will make sense. Again, like Rachel said, you don't always have to go back and figure that out. But if you can just try, I want you to have this mantra in your head of how I'm feeling is normal. My reaction is normal. Even if you have to hear one of us in your head saying it because you don't trust yourself right now, that's fine. I want you to just know we've coached a lot of people over many years. I've never once heard
thousands and thousands of hours of coaching.
Thousands of hours of coaching. Hundreds and hundreds of clients. I've never once heard someone have a reaction to something and I'm like,
what the fuck's wrong with you? Yeah, never.
Never. It always makes sense.
Always makes sense.
It always makes sense. And it's always coming from usually a pretty valuable place it's trying to tell you something. You're having an emotional reaction because some part of you is trying to give you a message. If you're enraged, it's because a boundary got crossed or a value got stepped on. If
or
you're
a need
sad,
wasn't met.
If you're depressed, it means something is going wrong and you're off a path and you want to get back on the right path. Like, these things are coming up because they're trying to steer you back in the right direction. So it's important to listen and to give them space to tell you that message.
You can't continue to betray yourself. What happens when someone scorns your emotions, ignores them, belittles them, minimizes them, gaslights you, whatever? It's a betrayal. That's why it feels so shitty. That's why it is infuriating, or that's why it's depressing. That's why it makes you want to scream and tear your hair out sometimes, because it feels like a betrayal of who you are. Like, this person, maybe it's my mom. Maybe this person is supposed to love me more than anything, and she won't see me. And that is so infuriating, and it's so depressing. And it is like she betrayed who I am, because if she can't acknowledge my feelings, she can't see me. So it's like being stabbed in the back or in the front. It hurts. So if you keep doing it to yourself, that's a betrayal of yourself. So the way that you have to start processing your feelings and your hurt is you have to allow yourself the grace that no one maybe has allowed you, which is your feeling of your feelings has to be okay. Minimizing isn't going to work anymore. Logicking them away is not going to work anymore. Gaslighting yourself is not going to work anymore. You have to allow yourself the full expression of how you feel. And I'm going to link to other episodes because we're not going to get into the whole process of like reawakening feelings and learning how to like feel them in a way that doesn't feel like overwhelming or scary. I've got a bunch of episodes that we're going to link to after this. We'll talk about them at the end, and then I'll link to them in the show notes. But you have to give yourself permission to have the full range of human experience. so that you don't continue to betray yourself. You might be the only person in your life who doesn't betray yourself, and that would be fine with me.
Well, you have to be the first person.
Yeah, you have to be the first.
Because even if other people, if you have a practiced internal dialogue of betraying yourself and shutting down your own emotions and feeling broken, then no matter what anyone else says, even if really loving, supportive, validating people come into your life and tell you, no, but you're so great. No, but you're so smart. Don't you see all those great qualities in yourself? You're going to immediately shut it down. So it has to start with you. You cannot seek that elsewhere. Now, once you have that strong sense of, it's okay for me to be who I am, I like who I am, I express who I am, then when other people see you, that just feels great. That just feels wonderful. And I want you to find those people. And it's also easier to dismiss people who are going to try to shut you down. But it has to start with you accepting yourself, because no other path actually works.
So let's talk about how to recognize who is safe and who's not for being able to share the fullness of who you are, being able to share all of your feelings, being able to open up, trusting that someone is capable of meeting your emotional needs.
Before we talk about those characteristics, I just have to mention this old blog post of Danielle Laporte. If you have not heard us talk about Danielle Laporte before, she's phenomenal. She's a writer and a teacher and just a
speaker and a podcaster.
Kind of guru. Yes. And she wrote a post that stuck with me, and I still reference it to clients to this day. And it's been probably 5 years, 6 years. I don't even know.
At least that.
And it's called, the title tells you everything you need to know. It's called Open, Gentle Heart, Big Fucking Fence. And the reason that stands out to me so much is that if you are someone who has an open, gentle heart, which, by the way, who among us isn't, but especially, I know a lot of our people are highly sensitives or empaths, and they just feel a lot.
Yeah, more than the average,
and
probably.
We want you to have that open, gentle heart. And if you do not have a big fucking fence around it, then what's going to happen is everyone comes in, everyone's going to take advantage, everyone's going to stomp on it, and it's going to turn hard and withered. So I'm not saying have a big fucking fence that no one can get through. I'm saying you have a big fence, and maybe you have a nice drawbridge or a nice gate that you can open up to say, I allow you in and you get to have full access to my open, gentle heart.
Yeah.
But if you don't get in, you have to stay behind the fence. And that's okay. That's just called discernment. So we're going to help you figure out who to let into your fence.
Yeah, because if you keep letting in people who keep stabbing you, that ain't right.
No, that's just destructive to yourself.
It's torture. It really is. And I see this happening way too often with my clients, that they keep letting in people who have proven time and again that they cannot be trusted to handle that person's feelings or that person's just identity, like who they are as a person. They just can't. They can't understand it. They can't handle it. They don't want to. So we have to be willing. And honestly, this can be hard because sometimes those are the closest people to you. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's your own mom or your sister. And that can be heartbreaking, and you're allowed to be heartbroken by it. And
that's one of those feelings you're allowed to feel.
Chasing those people down and dragging them into our castle over the moat and then demanding that they treat us well. Like, they're not capable of it.
Sometimes you have to have your family or the closest people to you on the other side of the fence. Doesn't mean you don't talk to them. It just means they don't get full access to your open, gentle heart because they're not
capable of treating it well.
They don't respect it.
No. So here are some things that we need to be aware of, look for with people who are capable of meeting our needs. 1, I'm not going to actually keep doing this as a list. I regret saying 1. They listen and are respectful of you, period, of the things you have to say, of your feelings. Like, they can sit and listen to you in a respectful way and are generally just respectful people.
Yep. That's big. You are trying to look for people who have integrity. And by that, I mean people who back their words up with actions. They walk their talk. They do what they say they're going to do. If they say, I'm going to call you, or I'm going to check in with you, or I'm going to do this thing, you can trust that they're going to do it because they're a person who is of their word. Well,
and I think that goes to an even deeper level beyond just action. So yes, they do what they say they're going to do on an action level, but they also, their words match their intention, so to speak, as in like they're not just saying one thing and then like, I'm just trying to think of an example that would maybe make this make sense. But let's say you're having, maybe you're having a conversation with your mom and she says, oh, I care about you and I care about this, of course. And then like 10 minutes later, she's making fun of you for having feelings.
Right.
So their words are not exactly the thing that we need to examine. We have to also examine, okay, but are they following through on what they're saying? Mm-hmm. Are they contradicting themselves on some level? Yep. So they have to have sort of an integrity just of spirit, of character, but also of words.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in the way they communicate.
We're also, we're looking for people who, and this is going to go along the same thing, they're consistent. So they're consistent in their messaging, like Rachel just said. They're not contradicting themselves. They're consistent in following through with you. And you can trust them to have mostly a pretty consistent response to you as well. You're not having one day they are, accepting and respectful, and then the next day they don't have any time for you.
They completely change their mind, or they shut down and walked away.
Or they can't with you that day. That's not consistent. That's going to make you always feel like you're on edge.
Right. This is maybe the biggest one, and I wrote it in all caps on my list of things. They don't take everything personally. So you cannot trust someone to meet your needs or to handle your emotions if everything you say gets twisted and made into something about them.
Yeah, because they can't see you. They're just seeing themselves
That's all they see.
In you.
Yeah. And on that note, they're also very trigger happy. Like, if every little thing sets them off, they can't be trusted to handle your complex emotions either.
Yep. Yeah. They have to also be someone who's fairly open-minded, because otherwise they're going to hear something about you and they're going to say, oh, I don't know about that, and then just shut down and make you feel invalidated. So they have to at least be open to hearing, oh, well, I wonder why you feel that way, or I'd love to hear more about where that came from. They're curious. They're open to hearing your perspective, even if they don't share it. They're open to the fact that someone might feel different than they do, and that's all good.
I would call that humility, too. Like, they're not so convinced that they're right, that they can't be open to your perspective. And I think, how can you possibly communicate with another person who is always convinced that they're right and that their perspective is the correct one? Like, there's no room for you in that equation because you're never going to align 100% with anyone, in their opinion, in their perspective. So if someone's already got a full cup, you can't pour more into it.
Yep. Their beliefs are going to take up the whole room and you have no space left.
Right. Exactly.
You also want someone who's not going to have a hysterical response to you.
That goes along with being trigger happy and not taking everything personally. But yeah, if someone goes to a 10 every time, like a little thing happens, or every time they get triggered,
safe person for
it's not a safe person. Like the explosiveness, or the, maybe they have like a sort of histrionic reaction.
Well, you're not going to want to share anything with that person because you're going to want to avoid the tornado.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that just, to me, that's sad, because that hysterical reaction to me is just a tip off that person has a lot of unhealed wounds and baggage of their own. But like, willingness to work through their own baggage, another good sign. Yeah,
exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
That like they can be trusted.
If they're so caught up in their own baggage, they're not going to have any space for you to process yours, or even just have your own feelings.
You feel relaxed around them. So we've alluded to not, people who are trustworthy are ones you don't have to tense up around all the time, or just like you're not constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop with this person. Like, that if something went sideways, or if you dropped a weird bomb, they wouldn't freak out. They could handle whatever you might throw at them, or at least with mostly grace. I'm not saying they are such a Zen Buddha that they never, get upset, but that you're not constantly like walking on ice around that person, because you don't know how they're going to react to any given thing.
Yep. You're also looking for someone who's more often generous than selfish. Look, I'm not going to say any of us is like Mother Teresa here, but if you're spending a lot of time with someone who it's all about them, and they're only ever talking about themselves or caring about their emotional responses or what they want to do, and they're not generous with their time with you, with their attention,
with their energy,
with their listening ears, with their energy. And again, this is going to be someone who it's all about them, and you don't have any room left. to be yourself or to be seen.
Right. A person who's generous of spirit can sit back and not make something about them and can really focus on you and doesn't feel the need to necessarily have that reciprocated all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like they trust that, eventually you'll reciprocate when the time is right, but they don't need, it's not a tit for tat,
right.
situation. Nobody's keeping score in a relationship where you can feel trusting. Yeah. And then the last one we have on our list is you feel energetically bolstered after being around them instead of drained.
This just makes me think about our episode about energy vampires.
That's on my list of ones we're going to recommend at the end of this.
Yeah, because when you're around someone, and I won't get into it because we got into it for an entire episode, but energy vampires are people who they drain all of the energy out of you. They kind of feed off of it. And you will know because you will leave interactions with them and you will just feel like, whew, just wiped. Versus someone who you have a great conversation with and you walk away and you're like, God, that just gave me a little boost of energy. That just made me a little light spot in my day.
So the last thing I want to recommend to you guys is to make a list of people who you think are trustworthy. And if you need to also make a list of people that you think, according to this episode, don't pass the bar of who can be trusted with your feelings, you can do that too.
Yeah, I want you to make a list and stand at the front of your gate and be like, are you on the list? Okay, you allowed in. Or, oh, you're not on the list.
You're your own
stay
bouncer.
Stay in the moat. Yeah, be your own bouncer.
Yeah. And I had one of my clients do this just the other day, and it became very clear to her very quickly that there were 3 people in her life. I thought 3 was not bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. There was 3 people in her life she felt checked all those boxes. Like she could be herself with them. She could trust them to have an appropriate reaction, who weren't going to make it all about them, who weren't going to get hysterical. And then there were a few people, 2 in particular I'm thinking of, there was 3, who really she has to work through the grief of letting go of the attachment she's had to getting something from them that they are just not capable of giving to her. But I really, really believe that when you do grieve that and you process that, you let it go, you will be so much freer and happier, because I think the most painful thing is continuing to hope that someone is going to finally change or be better when they're not going to. And letting them off the hook for that is actually more freeing to you and to them and to everyone. And so it's better to focus on the people who can give you that and cultivate relationships where that is possible, rather than continuing to try to get something out of someone who's just, it's kind of cruel to you and to them, to be honest, if they're not capable of meeting you there.
I know you probably have a lot of episodes you're already linking to, but I wrote a whole blog about this a while back about not going to the hardware store for milk.
Yeah, I didn't put that on the list, but I did put one of mine that's even more relevant than that on the list. And if we want to go deep, I think your blog about hardware store for milk is on that episode. I think we referenced.
Yeah,
if you want to go down the rabbit hole, you can find all sorts of...
There's a deep bench.
Really deep bench. Okay, so I just want to, wrap this up by saying it's okay for you to feel however you feel. Yes, however you feel. I'm not qualifying that. Everything you feel makes sense. And
it's all valid.
Would make sense to me if you sat down and told me. I would guaranteed. You can think anything you want right now, and I guarantee you I would not find
We've
it weird.
heard it all by now, too.
I have heard it all, trust me. And it's all normal. It all makes sense. It's all understandable. And so just because someone has made you feel wrong for having feelings, or made you feel like your feelings are too big or too much, or like you can't ever do anything right, or, that you're silly for having them in the first place, or that they maybe just don't even exist and shouldn't exist, that wasn't right that happened to you. And I'm really sorry that happened to you, because it's a very painful thing. And I keep getting back to the word betrayal. It does. It feels like a betrayal. It feels like a betrayal of who you are. And when someone refuses to see who you are, it's one of the most lonely, isolating, awful things you can experience.
Yeah. And it's wrong. It's just
plain wrong.
It's incorrect.
Yes.
Your feelings, whatever they were when they were shut down or diminished, or you were gaslit into believing that you were the crazy one, that was incorrect. That was wrong. And from here on out, I want you to give yourself that permission that what I'm feeling is valid, even if no one gets it and no one believes me or no one even knows. Maybe I don't even want to share with certain people because I know how that's going to go.
That's fine.
But I give myself that permission.
So, okay. Your feelings matter. That's that on that. And
if you want to share any comments about how this resonates, I'd love to hear.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear it. We always link to where this episode lives on our site, and you can go give us a comment there.
All right. We've promised we're going to review related listening because this is a topic that really does deserve a lot more time and attention than we can give it in 45 minutes. And the good thing is we already have given it a lot more time and attention.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take it way back to a classic from the very first month we ever had a podcast. April 2018, Emotional Constipation with Joanna Platt. That's a really
classic episode about feeling your feelings.
Yeah, and learning how to do it and not feeling crazy in the process.
This is one of maybe my favorite episodes that we've ever done that I still send clients to all the time. It was a side chat we did also in April 2018. We are not the crazy ones. How to tell if you're a highly sensitive person. No joke, like this has changed people's lives, knowing that they're a highly sensitive person and acting accordingly.
Mm-hmm. And so many of you have a lot of feelings because you're highly sensitive. So
we attract a lot of them. So there's a decent chance you might be one if you're here.
Well, you both are. So that's, like attracts like. Okay, from September 2018, side chat, how to get through life's big transitions. This one is about grief and about why it's really necessary for you to allow yourself to experience grief and how sometimes you're going to be grieved and you're not going to even know why. And it's usually going to be because you're going through a transition of some kind. So it's very related to feeling your feelings. It's just more about grief than any other feeling.
Yeah. And I referenced this one earlier in our conversation. This was a bonus book club that we did in May 2019, Dodging Energy Vampires by Christian Northrup. So if you suspect that you might have any of these people who belong on the other side of the moat, I'm not saying they're all energy vampires, but I'm saying there's a lot of them out in the world. So you might have encountered some. And this is how to skirt away from them.
Well, the least trustworthy of feelings and prey upon your feelings.
They're the most likely to gaslight.
Malicious, for sure, with your feelings in a way other people might just be accidentally, shitty to you. They're going to be maybe purposefully
manipulative.
Shitty. Yeah. And then a blog from last month, December 2019, Stop Torturing Yourself with Other People's Potential. Very related.
Yeah.
And then again, I don't have the date exactly, but I will go put it on that list of episodes. Our expert interview with Thais Sky, which was about healing, what was it called? Healing the worthiness wound with Thais Sky. I think it was from like October-ish of 2019. So go back a few months. But again, just if you want to confirm the exact date, go look in the show notes. So anyway, if you need a compendium of listening on how to feel your feelings, go to the show notes and get like about maybe 6 hours of listening in just from those episodes
Crash
alone.
Course. Yeah.
Okay. So we will be back on Tuesday. Normally it would be a blog, but I think we might do something different because it's going to be the first day that the PBB is open for enrollment. So I don't know what we're going to be doing. So just come back for a surprise of some kind.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you then.